Welcome to my fall recommendations in TBR. Honestly, Southern California is giving me the cozy vibes today because it is gloomy, there's a light drizzle, I just feel so cozy. And of course, I couldn't do a fall video without the pumpkin cold foam chai tea latte. And I like getting the little holder so I don't get condensation everywhere for no reason. Okay, here are some timestamps in case you just want to know about the recommendations or you just want to know what my TBR is. Okay, starting off with the recommendations, I broke them up into subcategories. I hope that makes it just flow a little better, but let's get started. Starting off with YA mystery thrillers, we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. Now this is the second book. I don't know where my first one is, but it is following Pip, who is a high school student working on her capstone project. She wants to use this capstone project to reinvestigate the death of a previous high schooler that went to her school. She just doesn't think the results that came of the investigation is accurate. So you're following that in book 1, and then books 2 and 3 just take off from there. Next up, we have One of Us is Lying. Now, there are books after this. I've only read this one, but it is The Breakfast Club meets murder mystery. These 5 high schoolers are sent to detention. In that detention, one of them dies, but the 4 remaining all have various secrets that honestly would make them good suspects. So you're just following along with figuring out what happened in detention. Next up is the Naturals series. Now this is a YA crime series where the FBI is recruiting teenagers with gifts in profiling, being able to detect lies, reading emotions. You have a walking encyclopedia in there, things like that. And they've created this classified program to help enhance those skill sets to ultimately help the FBI in solving cold cases, and then I would assume blossom into FBI agents. Okay, and the last one in this category is the Thursday Murder Club series. It is a cozy mystery series where this group of 70-year-olds get together once a week to solve cold cases. And so the cases vary in each book. The vibes are there, guys. The vibes are there. Moving on to adult mystery thrillers, I think Verity is the great transition book from YA to adult thrillers and mysteries. So it is following Lowen, who is an introverted author who really needs a publishing deal, and the husband of a famous author comes to Lowen when his wife is in a car accident and she can no longer finish the book that she's on contract to finish. So he offers Lowen to stay at their house where Lowen would have access to all of the author's notes and stuff to finish the book. It goes from there. The next kind of transitional book that just kind of gets you into the genre is Billy Summers by Stephen King. This is not the typical kind of psychological thriller, scary book that Stephen King is known to write. And so it's a good tester to see how you like Stephen King's writing. Billy Summers is an ex-Marine turned assassin. He has one last job before he wants out. He's tired. He's getting old. He's like, you guys can't be doing this forever. So you're just following that story, and it is just so interesting to see the mind of Billy Summers and just how smart he is and how he wants others to perceive him. It was really good. I enjoyed it, and I will definitely be reading more Stephen King. We can't be in this category without discussing Alice Feeney, so I have 4 recommendations by her. The first one is the first book that I read by Alice Feeney, which is Rock, Paper, Scissors. It's duo POV and sort of duo timeline. So you have the perspective of the husband and wife, and then the duo timeline part is essentially every year on their wedding anniversary, the wife writes a letter to the husband, and she's like, one day I'm going to give these all to you, but she just writes a letter how that anniversary day went. So you do get a glimpse into the past. Now, present time, their marriage isn't going so hot, so they agree to go to this cabin for a weekend in hopes of saving their marriage, but obviously things start to happen at the cabin. It gets a little spooky. Things go from there. Next up, we have His and Hers, which is also duo POV of a detective and a news journalist who were once married. A local murder happens, and they're forced to cross paths, and you're kind of just figuring out what is the situation with the local murder, along with how are all these things connected. Next, we have Daisy Darker, and Daisy Darker is a part of a very dysfunctional and secretive family. This book is set on Halloween, and essentially all of the family is getting together at Nana's isolated manor in order to celebrate her 80th birthday. Keep in mind, Nana's rich. So at midnight, Nana is found dead. An hour later, another family member is found dead. And then it goes from there of figuring out, you know, like who is in this house trying to kill everyone and why. Because this isolated manor is essentially isolated because of the tide, and so they're just stuck for several hours before the tide goes back out and anyone can leave. Okay, the last Alice Feeney book I have is I Know Who You Are. Now this is following an actress who has a very sketchy childhood that she never talks about, and one day she comes home and her husband has vanished. And she has recently gotten letters from a stranger saying, I know who you are, and she's like, the only people that know like of my childhood and kind of what I went through are these like select few. So it's just like, what's going on? And so you're just kind of figuring out like, where's the husband and what is all this, like, how is this all connected? Next, I have The Silent Patient, and this is about a woman who was found guilty of murdering her husband, and since that day, she has remained silent. She's now at a psychiatric facility where a psychotherapist is very determined to figure out what happened and just to get her to talk. Okay, and the last one in this category is The Maidens. It's by the same author as The Silent Patient, and actually in the same universe. It takes place beforehand, and there's no like crossing of storylines per se here, but it's just like she's a therapist in this as well, so it's just names are dropped and you're like, oh, I know that character from the other book. But this is following a group therapist where her husband recently passed away, so she's battling that grief. She's also acting as a mom to her niece that lost both of her parents, and while her niece is away at college, her niece's friend dies, and so she just goes there to support her niece and be there, but as a therapist, her interest peaks in solving the mystery when another body is found. Okay, next up I have some romances. The first one being The Cheat Sheet. So this is following Nathan and Bree. Nathan is an NFL player. Bree is a ballerina teacher in the same city. They are high school BFFs. They've loved each other since the beginning, but they will never admit it. Present time, Nathan's teammates want him to get the girl and work for it. They just admitted their feelings. They wouldn't have to work that hard. But it's just so funny, and just seeing like the NFL teammates and Bree and Nathan and their relationship. It's a very funny and cute book. Next up is The Bodyguard. Now this is literally set in fall. It is a woman bodyguard hired by a superstar to just help protect him from a potential stalker when he is home visiting his sick mother. Now he doesn't want his family to worry, so instead of her being known as his bodyguard, they have to fake date, of course. We love a good fake dating trope. Next I have Hooked, which is the first book in the Never After series. It is a dark Peter Pan retelling. It is following Hook as our main character, who is completely captivated by Peter's daughter, Wendy. And of course, we cannot do this video without discussing Love in Other Words. Now, many people have read this book, but by the off chance that you haven't, please. Duh. It's an obvious choice here. It's childhood best friends to lovers, and they stopped talking after one night many years ago. Fast forward to present time, they run into each other, and you're now following this then-now timeline and just figuring out what happened while seeing, obviously, the connection that's there. These two characters, man, they have my heart for forever. Okay, then I have two literary fiction recommendations. The first one being My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It is following a 20-something-year-old who is honestly just going through it mentally and emotionally. She's graduated college, she's lost both of her parents, and is in this on-again, off-again toxic relationship. So she wants to sleep away her life for 1 year in hopes of just waking up rejuvenated and with a binded soul. And then we have Bunny. This book is something else. It is set in a college writers' school where, honestly, it's a Barbie cult. Like, it is just so whack. And if you liked this book, I think you would enjoy this and vice versa. But if you didn't like either of these, I feel like you probably wouldn't like the other. The last category I have is fantasy dystopian. So the first one being the Atlas Six. Now there's the Atlas Six, the Atlas Paradox, and then the third book comes out in January. So the Atlas Six is following 6 magicians that have been selected to fight for a spot in this elite Alexandrian society. So only 5 of 6 will actually be admitted at the end of the year. So book 1 is that first year, and book 2 honestly is just a continuation right after book 1 ends. I feel like I have to recommend this, but the Harry Potter series, like, it's just a comfort series, and I feel like fall and winter months, it's the perfect time to read this. Okay, next we have A Discovery of Witches. I'm gonna try my best to give a synopsis here, but witches, demons, and vampires are living amongst us, and our main character, Diana, is a witch, but she has no interest in her witch capabilities. So the sorcery of it all, she does not want anything to do with it. And so she actually turns out to be an Oxford scholar, smarty pants, and one day at the library she calls a manuscript where it turns out that manuscript has been lost for hundreds of years. So now all the witches, demons, and vampires all want Diana, and to figure out, like, how did she have the ability to call this manuscript? Now our other main character, Matthew, a vampire, yes, he has his interest in the script as well and just figuring out, like, everything that's said and written in that manuscript, but he also wants to protect Diana and just help keep her safe. Obviously, witches and vampires are not supposed to mix, but, like, full transparency, I'd make an exception for Matthew as well. Now this is a series and I've only read the first book, but the story is just continuing from that. And then we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Now if you've read this, like, tell me this wouldn't be the most perfect Disney movie. It is following Emily, who wants to make the first ever encyclopedia of fairies. She has one last group called the Hidden Ones that are the most elusive that she is trying to just learn more about in order to complete her encyclopedia. It's just a very fun, cozy, whimsical read, honestly. I feel like I have to recommend this, the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. Now I'm primarily recommending this because of book 3 coming out in October, but it is in the same universe as the Caraval trilogy, and I do recommend that you read the Caraval trilogy before getting into this if you haven't. Our main character in here, Jax, is a part of, for sure, legendary and finale in the Caraval trilogy. He may be mentioned in the first one, I can't really remember, but he's the main character in this trilogy. And so you definitely want to just have that more familiarity with Jax and all the events that he's gone through leading up to this. Did I mention Jax is the Prince of Hearts? Did I mention he would also be an exception? Okay, this last one, I don't have a physical copy because I've lent it out to a coworker, but I have to recommend Fourth Wing. Like, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry, but if you haven't read it, just please read it. Obviously, book 2 comes out in November, so just, guys, please. Like, this book has become my personality. Okay, now on to the fall TBR. I'm going to go over the books that I have physically that I want to read, along with all the new releases coming out between now and November that I definitely have my eye on. I did break these up into subcategories as well, so just hoping that makes it go smoother. First up is the adult mystery thrillers. I have The Inmate by Frida McFadden. This will be my first Frida McFadden book, so I'm very excited to get into her writing. I liked Verity, so I'm giving Too Late by Colleen Hoover a shot. And then I have The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I also have never read a book from him, so I'm excited to see how that goes. And then I have A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. Then I have The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I've definitely heard a lot of things about this book. I was influenced by social media. This is Lee Howard and the Ghost of Simmons Pierce Manor. So this was the book that kind of went viral because of the TikTok of the author having his signing and, like, no one was coming. It just honestly made people sad. And then I bought the book. And then I have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I mean, this book is pretty iconic, I feel like, in this genre, so I'm excited to read this. And then I have probably one of my most anticipated reads from the adult mystery thriller section. That is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Now, I have not read any of this author's books before, so I'm excited to see how it goes. Okay, next up is romance. I have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Now, I did want to read this in the summertime, but the more I just saw kind of different people talk about it, they did recommend it for more of the fall time. And so here I am, going to be reading this fall. And then I have a highly anticipated read, Love Theoretically, with it being set at like college setting, and I don't know, just when I read school books, I definitely feel like it's more of a fall vibe. And then I have In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. I haven't read anything by this author, so cover is cute though. Then I have The Makeup by Haley Gardner. Oh, that's so cute. Like, these covers. And then Just Friends by Madison Wright. Like, I feel like all these covers just kind of go together. And last up is The Ex-Hex. I don't know how I haven't read this, honestly. Now, the last section is the fantasy dystopian genre. I'm embarrassed to say I have not read The Inheritance Games, but it's on my list. Then I really want to knock out the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology. Now, I did read the Shadow and Bone first book, but I don't know, I did like the book more than the show, but I think I'm just way more interested in this duology. Then I hope to get to Dance of Thieves as well. I've only heard great things about this duology, Dance of Thieves and then Vow of Thieves, and like this book is just so pretty. And then I have book 2 of that All Souls trilogy, which is the A Discovery of Witches that I was talking about. And then finally, I have Starbringer. Honestly, I saw this book at Target. I read the synopsis and I was like, yeah, no, I need that book. Like, I need that book. Lastly, I want to talk about new releases that are coming out between now and November. I'm going to talk about them in the order that they're coming out. And honestly, I'm only talking about the books that I want to read in fall. There are some coming out that I'd like to read during the winter months, but this video is about fall. First up is Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. Now, this book came out August 29th, so it just came out, but I feel like I need to include this because I will be picking that up. And then Holly by Stephen King comes out September 5th. Now, guys, Holly, okay, I haven't read Stephen King, like I don't have a lot of experience, but I guess this book, there's like 2-3 books before this that reference Holly and Holly's a character in, and I just think like that's so interesting. So I kind of want to pick up those books and then get Holly. There are 3 books coming out on September 12th that, oh gosh, guys, like September's popping. The first one is 19 Steps by Millie Bobby Brown, and then we have Rouge by Mona Awad. It's the same author as Bunny, and then a romance book called You Again by Kate Goldbeck. Honestly, the cover got me. I can't even remember the synopsis off the top of my head, but I was like, no, that's cute. Then there are 2 books coming out on September 19th. The first one being Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter. I remember seeing someone review this as an ARC on Bookstagram, and I was like, oh, no, I'm obsessed. And then the other one is the 4th book in the Thursday Murder Club series. And then these last 2 are like the most highly anticipated new releases. October 24th is when A Curse for True Love comes out, which is the 3rd book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. And then Iron Flame comes out November 7th, which is the 2nd book following Fourth Wig. Okay, that wraps up my recommendations, my TBR, along with new releases that I am very excited about. Let me know any books that you're reading this fall that I didn't mention, or if you read any of these books, let me know your thoughts. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.